has stood here, sheltered by ancient oaks, for over 150 years. When its great columns were being raised, the libraries of Harvard, Princeton, and Yale were still only drawings. It was to be the first freestanding library built in America. Designed in large part by Robert Mills, a South Carolinian and architect of the Washington Monument, the South Caroliniana Library still stands watch by the gates of the historic Horseshoe at the University of South Carolina. A curved stairway, closely modeled after the original at the Library of Congress, leads to the second-floor reading room. Illuminated by the southern light through the horseshoe oaks and circular skylights, the library interior still reflects the pride and beauty of the original design. But the true value of a library lies not in its architectural design, no matter how beautiful. Collections of books and manuscripts, carefully assembled over time, hold the true worth of an institution. Early in its history, the library's collections were considered among the best in the nation. At the time of the Civil War, the library's holdings rivaled those of Harvard and Yale. Throughout its history, the library has hosted scores of illustrious scholars, including scientists John and Joseph LeConte and the internationally renowned Francis Lieber, author of the Encyclopedia Americana, the first American encyclopedia. Today, the South Caroliniana Library is one of the 10 largest repositories of Southern manuscripts in the United States and holds one of the nation's 3 most important collections of Southern history. Its holdings are essential to the understanding of South Carolina and Southern culture over the last 300 years. Scholars and researchers dedicated to expanding this understanding still come to explore the library's collection. Whether the subject is 18th century ornithology or 20th century politics, visitors find an unrivaled source of information.
What we now call the South Caroliniana Library was built prior to the Civil War. It was the first separate college library building in the country. Even at major Ivy League schools, libraries were part of an administration building or classroom building. It was fireproof, no fire was allowed in here, but it contained one of the best library collections. It wasn't just a great building, which it was and is a beautiful building, but it contained one of the greatest pre-Civil War college libraries in the country. There's a fantastic collection of printed materials, books, pamphlets, maps, photographs, and the like, and those can all be used here, as well as literally millions of manuscripts. Millions of pages of manuscripts that belong to this collection. And as a researcher here, it's always fascinated me with the cross-section of people who use it. This isn't just a library for the college professors. You'll see 8th graders working on their South Carolina history term papers. You will see genealogists. You will see people just interested in the history of the state who stop here and research because the resources are tremendously rich. And we've got materials here, not just the manuscripts, but printed materials that are not available anywhere else, including the Library of Congress.
Over 2,000 newspaper titles, a vast collection of modern political material, over 10,000 books and printed documents, 20,000 images, and manuscripts numbering in the hundreds of thousands. The responsibility and joy of collecting, organizing, and preserving this vast collection falls to the University of South Carolina and the staff of the South Caroliniana Library.
When I came to USC 4 years ago, and for me, one of the jewels in coming was this library. I had not consulted the library before, and so I realized that in terms of my own research on Southern history, this place would prove invaluable. I had a tour of the building when I came here. I met Tom Johnson, Alan Stokes when I first came here, and I was quickly made aware of both the collections used for my own research and for my students' research. So I was really surprised that there was such a wealth of material on campus and that was so readily accessible.
Ever since the Caroliniana has been a separate library, beginning with Dr. Robert Lee Merriweather and Les Abbott and Alan Stokes, we have had a succession. We've only had 3 directors of the library since it became a separate library. But they all knew the collections intimately. So when a visitor came in, whether it's an 8th grader or a scholar from Oxford University, and I've seen them all out here, if they talked to Alan or one of his staff, people know exactly where to go. You need to check the Ori papers, or you need to check the Marion papers, or the Smith-Rogers papers, whatever. They know how to help people. We've got all the finding aids, modern finding aids, that's nice, but still, you can't put everything in a finding aid. You've got to have somebody who knows the collections, and that's what we've got here. So it's not just the materials, it's the staff that's a real treasure.
We learn as we work with other people. Very often, we learn from them because of their knowledge of our holdings or their knowledge of a particular subject area. And of course, the individual members of the staff learn as they deal with researchers who have different interests, some genealogical, some historical, and you know, you accumulate a broad knowledge once you've been here for a few years, and fortunately, I think the staff that have been here over the years have been very eager to share their knowledge with people who come here to do research.
A critical part of the library's mission is to expand its collections, to add history to history. Some material is acquired through the direct purchase of rare items that would otherwise be in danger of passing into private hands, unavailable to scholars and researchers. Other materials come to the library through the generosity of individuals and families. These unique gifts form an important part of the library's collections. This spirit of giving continues today. In recent years, significant additions to the library's collections have been donated by selfless individuals and families. The August Cohn donation is the largest and most comprehensive collection of printed material gifted to the South Caroliniana Library, consisting of over 4,000 books and pamphlets.
This was a decision that was made deliberately. It was not done in haste. It was done over a matter of years. I suppose the genesis of it was probably the request of my grandfather and my mother in their wills. My grandfather died in 1930, so you see what we're talking about. But as we worked with the university and the library, it became more and more obvious that this was the proper place for the collection. We're glad to be in a leadership position, which we feel we are, in this move throughout the country and certainly throughout South Carolina to put items in the hands of the people who can best take care of them, and our collection is a good example of that.
The family of John Henry McCrae, a prominent African-American journalist and politician, has entrusted his papers to the South Caroliniana Library as well.
He was really a fighter for justice and equality in South Carolina. He was a civil rights person, he was a political rights person, and he had a newspaper, the Lighthouse and Informer. Edgerton said about him that South Carolina needed a man like John McCrae, because he was a combative journalist, and he was.
The McCrae gift is an important part of the growing African-American history collection at the Caroliniana Library.
This is extremely important, and I think it's being recognized now that you can't tell the history of a country and leave out a whole people that had a very significant part in the development of that country. So now people have come to that and are really saving everything and recognizing it, that this is important. And I'm glad to, you know, that those papers are a part of that.
Every semester in my class, I begin with an essay by a bibliophile, Arthur Schomburg, who created one of the most extensive African-American archival centers in the country. And the first sentence of the essay says, in order for the Negro to advance his future, he must go back and remake the past. And I think the South Caroliniana enables us to remake the past, enables us to revisit eras that are quite important for understanding where we are today as a community and as a state. And I think to consult the material here not only gives you a great reflection about the past, but I think it also imparts important insights about our present circumstances and our present challenges. And as we seek for increased donations and increased collections, I think one of the things we can think about is how might our exploration of the past give us important lessons about the present and the future.
In addition to gifts of historical materials, financial contributions have allowed the library to supplement its own budget, particularly in its preservation efforts.
In the case of the things that I was interested in, we've always been interested in South Carolina history, too. My family, part of my family came over before 1700 in 1680. And so we feel like that the old things are so important. And as the years go by, a lot of things that we thought people would remember forever, they don't even know about now. And we just feel that things should be kept for the children and the grandchildren and those that come after them. And the only way to do it is, I think, through the libraries, because that's the best universities have the best libraries. And we want the University of South Carolina to be the best.
Each part of the collection, whether a musical score from the 17th century or a yellowing poster from World War II, requires a unique preservation effort to ensure that it will survive for future generations to appreciate.
But to know that it was really going to be used to preserve things that we think are important has meant an awful lot to us.
I think this is an opportunity for me to say how impressed I am with the programs that the university has for enhancing its collections and its assets through gifts. You know, some 30 or 40 years ago, when I first became aware of this, it was very rare for the university to get a gift of $1,000. And now, mostly through enhanced works of art and works of scholarship, they have received some magnificent bequests and gifts, and it reflects itself not only through the Caroliniana Library, but the university as a whole. And somebody deserves a lot of credit for, how are we going to put that, bringing the university into the 21st century when it comes to accumulating great works of art and literature and scholarship. So we do say congratulations.
Recent donations will take their place in the collections of the South Caroliniana Library, alongside the centuries-old materials that founded the institution. It is an institution that occupies a unique place in our history, a nexus where a dedicated, caring staff preserves the gifts from a family and makes them available to a people, where a scholar takes the history of a people and opens the eyes of a new generation.
I think the ambience of this library adds to that special feeling. I mean, we could be in something that looked like a hospital waiting room with nice white walls or institutional green walls and fluorescent lighting and tile floor, and it'd be very efficient and modern and what have you, sterile. This 19th century reading room, again, it just sort of shouts history. It doesn't just exude it, it shouts history. This is a special place, and when you're coming here to study history, you are studying history finding out about history, finding out about the past in a building itself that is a historical artifact.
If I'm here by myself, perhaps on a weekend, doing some work, you know, sometimes you just look around and sort of wonder at the room itself, the building itself, and the number of people who've used the building over the years. You can just look around you and imagine.
History wrapped in history. The thoughts and lives of our ancestors passed from hand to hand, from generation to generation, collected and guarded with pride, donated with trust and faith, cared for with knowledge and dedication.